proper lifting form, getting that full range of motion, especially going deep into that stretched position, controlling the weight, versus bro lifting, ego lifting, just packing on as much weight as possible and hoisting hefty loads. Which one is right? Which one is right for you, for your gains, your health, your goals? Today I'm in a bit of a chill outfit. I'm back in the OG robe. As you can tell, it's a bit of a relaxed day. We've got an off day today. So this is the perfect time to engage with the deeper topics, the deeper questions of life, like how clean should your lifting technique be? Should you listen to Dr. Mike, slow, 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 control the eccentric as if another Israel? Or the doctor of density, Eric Bugenhagen, the head honcho of horse cockery? After watching this video, you will not have to watch a single video on lifting form ever again. That is to say, you might want to watch specific exercise technique. You might want to watch specifically how to do a certain exercise if you've never done it before. But on the general topic of lifting form, you're good. You will never have to engage with that, research that again. So let's just get straight into it, because this is a topic that people like to throw out controversial takes on. This guy is saying this, that guy is saying that. And I'm going to be honest, so far, I'm not sure I have seen a single video like this one where someone just cuts the bullshit, cuts right to the chase, and just says what's up. So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, let's start with the basics, if you will. We obviously want to protect the health of our joints to a certain extent, and the health of our muscles, tendons as well. I think this goes without saying, because if you immediately injure yourself after doing like 3 or 4 workouts, your gains are going to suffer, and your long-term health potentially as well, depending on how bad the injury is. So dropping the weight into a joint, into the deep stretch of a muscle, is always a bad idea. Okay? I think this goes without saying to a certain extent, but let's just cover all the bases, be safe rather than sorry here. If we're looking at a bent over row, say, if you are pulling up the weight and then essentially controlling it 0% on the way down, just dropping it, letting gravity do the work, dropping it straight into your elbow joint, that shit ain't good for you. Don't do that. But I think you probably already kind of sort of assumed that, unless you're a complete gym newbie, in which case, yeah, don't do that. Same thing goes for push-ups. You will see people trying to do as many push-ups as possible, and they will do these super fast, super flimsy push-ups where they are essentially not controlling the position of their elbows and things like that at all. They're just pushing up with as much force as possible and basically dropping down into the push-up. You can do that if you have strong arms, if you're jacked already, and if you control right as you get to the bottom, right? If you drop up until here, and then you kind of buffer out the drop with your muscles right at the bottom, you can do that, but just straight up dropping all the way down into a push-up, especially if you're not very jacked, bad idea. for the same reason I just explained on the row. Not good for your joints. Depending on the exercise you're doing, you can also tear a tendon this way, or you might even tear a muscle. Don't do it. Okay. So what about, range of motion? What about the deep stretch? What about shortened partials, right? Partial reps in the shortened position, or if we're talking about partials at all, is the shortened position even relevant? Should you go for full range of motion? I think the question here is, what are your goals? It is fairly well established at this point that the whole lengthened partials hype was just that, a hype. Now, I'm not saying lengthened partials are bad. In fact, I would argue they can be great to go beyond failure on a set. Let's say you're doing something that's very safe, right? Pull-ups, for example. You've done your 5-6 reps with however much weight you have attached, and you can't do another, but you can start doing a rep. You can do maybe a quarter of a rep, maybe half a rep even. Now that's a situation where lengthened partials are great, because that's what you would be doing anyways, right? The partial you're doing is automatically a lengthened partial. And in my experience, yes, I would argue that the lengthened part of the exercise definitely hits my muscles more. Doing stuff at the top, like pausing at the top, holding at the top, can be nice, can give you more of a pump, but the lengthened position is definitely where I feel shit happening. And when I do workouts where I go deep into the lengthened position, now we're going to talk about how fast or slow that has to happen in a minute, but just go in there in general. Going deep on your squats, going deep on your dumbbell bench press, going deep on the pull-up all the way down. That shit really hits different. So I would definitely recommend doing that on exercises that allow for it. Now, the issue that kind of arose with this whole lengthened partial hype is that science-based lifters, quote unquote, would actually discredit exercises that don't naturally emphasize the deep stretch or don't allow for you to emphasize the deep stretch. If you look at something like a squat, you can go as deep as you can go. But then you got exercises like your standard, sitting dumbbell curl, the OGs of bodybuilding in many cases. And these exercises were deemed not that effective because you can't go into the deep stretch. And here's where I want to interject. The deep stretch is not that important. Now, I'm wearing a robe right now, so I can't really show my arms to any significant extent, but I have pretty big arms for a natural. Nothing crazy, I'm at about 18 inches now, but I do have big arms, and my biceps, in my opinion, are more developed than my triceps. I built most of that mass with sitting dumbbell curls. Is that to say that possibly in some hypothetical scenario, I couldn't have had some workout program that would have been a little bit more optimal than what I was doing? No, maybe, perhaps. But the question is, what does optimal mean in that case? See, if we're talking about lifting form, the deep stretch is not that important that you should kick out exercises out of your workout that are effective, that are working for you, and most importantly, that are easy to do, that are not very complicated, that you enjoy doing maybe, that don't take 5 minutes to set up. So if you've got an exercise that allows you to emphasize a deep stretch, go full range of motion of what your muscle that you're targeting is capable of, great. If not, do the full range of motion of that exercise. And if that's not the full range of motion of the muscle, it is what it is. Maybe there's a more effective exercise available. Maybe not. Maybe there is, but that exercise would be a fucking hassle and a half to set up or do consistently, or you just hate it. In which case, just stick to the exercise you like and go hard on it. I promise you, you can do 15 different curl variations. As long as you're increasing the reps and weight slowly over time and going close to or all the way to failure consistently, your biceps are going to grow. It's really not that deep. So, deep stretch, sure, go for it. Full range of motion, go for it if you can. If not, screw it. Now, should you skip the full range of motion and just go for lengthened partials on an exercise that allows for this? So let's say pull-ups are a great example because obviously you can go all the way into a hanging position, in which case that's about as stretched as your lats are going to get. Maybe you can get them a little bit more stretched on a pullover. Actually, let's take the pullover. Let's go ahead and take a pullover for the lats as our example, right? Should you just do lengthened partials? I don't think so. Now, the sort of climax of this whole lengthened partials hype was that study done by Jeff Nippard, which he had the cojones, he had the honor and integrity as an actual science-based lifter, as a, guy who you maybe shouldn't listen to on all things regarding all subjects, but at least he's not trying to fucking bullshit you from what I can tell. And he went ahead and he published that study he did with a couple of other people on lengthened partials versus full range of motion. And I believe the study was actually done on experienced lifters as well. So not some random fucking newbie gains study that's somewhat inconclusive if we're talking about people who actually train. And what the study found, I've mentioned this in a previous video, was that lengthened partials are not superior to full range of motion. They are more or less equally effective, and in fact, even though the difference was statistically insignificant, technically speaking, they performed a little bit worse. But that might be due to other factors. Again, not to a statistically significant degree, but, just keep that in mind. Now, the thing is, if you're going to failure on an exercise, and I don't think this point was brought up in the video, because I believe the conclusion drawn was that, well, if I can do a set of lengthened partials and get the same out of it, even if it's not more gains, if I can get the same gains out of it, isn't that better than going full range of motion, actually doing the full exercise? The point that was kind of overlooked here, which was completely obvious to me when I watched that video, was that if you're going to failure on a set, does it really matter whether you were doing lengthened partials or full range of motion? Like, how is this set go into failure, of lengthened partials going to be less taxing, is going to be more chill than a set where you're doing full range of motion. And again, we're assuming the gains for these two are the same. I would think that a set where you're just doing lengthened partials is just going to be a set where you do like a few reps more at the same weight. But in terms of the actual exhaustion, in terms of the time invested, it's either more time and potentially more exhaustion because you're doing more reps, or it's roughly equal. In any case, you're going to failure on both sets. So the level of fatigue to your muscle should be more or less the same. Which is why the point made in the video, I believe it was actually in the video by Jeff Nippert, and this was a pretty silly point, that somehow the fact that they perform the same means that lengthened partials are still better because you're doing less of the exercise. That makes zero sense. Because if you're doing less of the exercise, but then you're still going to failure, which means you're just going to be doing less of the exercise, but probably a few more reps at the same weight and end up failing, right? Your muscle ends up failing. What is the difference? Except that you did a few more reps and technically the set would probably be taking a little bit longer. Nothing. So let's assume, right? Let's be generous here. Let's assume there's no difference. Okay, I would actually argue, based on what I just said, that lengthened partials are a little bit worse. Again, great for going beyond failure, right? Go to failure on a set. You can't do a full rep anymore, and then do lengthened partials. If you want some type of intensifier, that can be great, but just doing lengthened partials based on what I just said probably just takes a little bit longer. But let's assume equal on all grounds in regards to what I just mentioned. I would still recommend doing full range of motion on most movements. Why is that? Because it's going to train your muscle to move through the full range of what it is capable of. It's going to train your joints, your tendons, to move through that full range. And this might not be a huge difference, but it does make a difference. If you're training to be strong, to be functional, to be athletic, and you have the choice between training one way that is taxing for your muscles and is going to make you bigger, more jacked, right? Engage your muscle growth. And another way, which is equally taxing and is going to engage your muscle growth. But one of those has the added benefits that I just talked about. Why wouldn't you pick that one? Now, again, if you just really love doing lengthened partials, who gives a fuck? Okay? They're not terrible. You can do them, but full range of motion just has some added benefits to it. And mind you, this is not some crazy wisdom that I'm spitting here, okay? If you really think about it, this is what most lifters have been preaching for decades. And all this stuff that has been going around recently, it's really just fads. It's really just to hype you up to watch this video or that video, to feel like you have to join this camp or that camp. It's a waste of time. Okay? So, don't drop the weights into your joints, okay? Don't go zero control, just letting the weights fucking destroy your elbows or tear your tendons right off the bone. Don't do that. Generally speaking, try to go for exercises that allow for a full range of motion of the muscle. If you have to choose, preferably if the range is limited, a range that favors the deep stretch over, the shortened part of the exercise. But generally speaking, exercises that allow for a full range of motion are better. Most importantly, though, focus on exercises that definitely hit the muscle, okay, that definitely effectively hit the muscle, whether it's in a lengthened position, in more of a shortened position, or you've got the full range of motion. Doesn't really matter. Exercises that you like to do, that you go hard on, that you want to go hard on, okay? And that don't take like 10 minutes to set up. That's the most important part. Now let's talk about some more specific stuff. I mentioned earlier the whole question of how slow should you go. This is a very simple question to answer, actually. Dr. Michael Israetel is a complete fucking idiot on this topic. Going slow, going super slow on the eccentric is not going to give you more hypertrophy. Now, I do want you to control the weight. And that is the key point here. Control the weight. And ask yourself, what do I want to train? If we look at the opposite side of the spectrum, at bro lifting, ego lifting, right? When your form gets so sloppy that you're not even hitting the muscle you're trying to train, like you're doing curls and your elbow is just swinging wildly, that is obviously a little bit stupid if you're trying to train biceps on that curl and you're really hoisting up the weight with your back, mostly with the biceps kind of assisting a little bit. However, trying to go super clean form on every exercise can actually kill your gains. Little athlete and X meme in there for you. Some people get so in their own head, they get so focused on doing perfect technique, doing an exercise perfectly, like they're recording a form tutorial for the exercise, right? That they don't focus enough on going hard. Because your mental focus, your mental drive is an important factor in performance. I think anyone who lifts heavy will attest to this fact. If you're not in the zone, if you're focused on a bunch of different shit, if you're, completely dopamine depleted, you've been scrolling on Instagram all day while also playing Minesweeper on your second screen and watching Subway Surfer gameplay with a dude talking over it, critiquing movies, and you're just completely fucking brain rotted, you are going to perform like shit on your sets. It doesn't matter if you've recovered well, right? If you've slept enough, if you've eaten enough, if you have the energy, technically speaking, physiologically speaking, it doesn't matter. If your focus isn't 100%, you can perform significantly worse than you did when your focus was at 100%. And this is a huge problem if you get too focused on perfect technique. What I would recommend for most people who are past the beginner stage, they are an intermediate now, just getting into the intermediate stage, or maybe they've been there for a while and they feel like they are starting to kind of plateau with their gains, I would recommend having a phase, a month, a couple of months, where you really focus on clean technique. Really drill that shit in. Do the Dr. Mike. Go slow, 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 as if another, every fucking rep. Do that for a bit. You will probably not make a ton of gains, because what going slow does is not hit the muscle more. It makes the exercise more taxing endurance-wise. As long as you're going to failure on the set, muscular failure, it doesn't fucking matter how slow you were going. As long as you control the weight, so you're actually hitting the muscle, and you're going to failure, guess what? Your muscle was hit and will grow. However, going very slow can be great to learn proper form, to learn proper technique, to really focus in on doing nice, clean reps on your curls or triceps extensions or whatever the fuck we're talking about. I would recommend doing that again for a month, a couple of months maybe, until you really start getting pissed off by using fucking baby weights and doing a billion reps really slowly and just not making a ton of gains. And once you just can't stand it anymore, fuck that shit. Get back to lifting properly, but now relatively clean form has been fucking drilled into your brain. So now, controlling the weight, doing exercises fairly cleanly, like cleanly enough to where you're definitely hitting the muscle you want to hit, or muscles, plural, you want to hit. That shit is second nature to you now, okay? And now you can really focus on going hard. Because the problem with ego lifting, quote unquote, is not that people are going hard or that the form is a little bit sloppy maybe. The problem is when the form gets so sloppy that you're not hitting the right muscles anymore, that the exercise becomes some weird fucking hybrid, and that is not your actual intention. If you really just want to hoist heavy loads, or hefty loads rather, who am I to stop you? Fucking go ahead. And you will make gains, by the way, from that. It's just that if you want to grow your biceps, swinging the 100-pound dumbbells around with your back muscles, probably not going to do that. At least not a ton. So focus on that clean technique for a bit, month, couple of months, however long, until you just can't stand that shit anymore. And then go back to heavier weights, lower reps, not going fucking 25% speed on the eccentric, fucking slow motion on the eccentric. Slow, 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 slow. Just do the exercise normally. Control the weight. Don't let it drop, right? Control it on the weight down so your elbows are protected, so the muscle is actually the thing that is working. But beyond that, if you're controlling the weight and the exercise is relatively clean, it doesn't fucking matter. And in fact, if you're going super slow, you're going to tax your cardiovascular system. You're going to build up more, milk in the muscles. You probably know what the fuck I'm talking about. The term escapes me at the moment. The muscle is going to burn, right? But that doesn't mean that you're hitting it harder in terms of causing hypertrophy. It just means that the set is harder. The set feels harder to you. But as long as you're going to failure, that shit doesn't matter. Okay? So as long as you're in a reasonable rep range for hypertrophy, clean form, doesn't have to be perfect, super clean, just clean enough that you're hitting the target muscles, not so clean that you're getting distracted from actually going hard, going to failure. You're controlling the weight, you're golden. And that's really it. That's the whole topic of proper form. Do the exercise so it's hitting the muscle you want to hit. Control the weight so you don't injure your joints, muscles, tendons. And focus on going hard and really pushing yourself to failure. That's the most important part. Even if you ignore everything I talked about in regard to the lengthened position, the shortened position, if you throw all of that out of the window, just this is going to get you sick gains. That's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself, learned something valuable, and never have to engage in silly lengthened partial drama again. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, and feel free to share this video with anyone who is yapping about lengthened partials to you. Also, if you want to help me grow this channel, push the algorithm a little bit, go ahead and drop a comment. If you have any questions, suggestions for future videos, anything you want me to talk about, make a video on, feel free to do that down below. You can also hit me up on Instagram if you're interested in a personalized training program or coaching in some capacity. Go ahead and do that over there. If you want to see more videos of mine in the future, this is obviously a fitness video. I make these types of videos on general health as well, and on occasion, the odd philosophical video. If you are interested in that type of content, go ahead and subscribe to this shaggy barbarian over here and activate the notification bell if you want notifications. I'll leave it at that. See you guys in the next one, and until then, have a good one.